little bit about the Australian Consumer Law. Now, the Australian Consumer Law is this thick, so I cannot give you everything about the Australian Consumer Law today, but I can give you a couple of things, both in terms of your role as a business, but also in terms of your role as a consumer individually and as a business where you're consuming products from other businesses. So, some of the areas that you need to know about that we're going to cover today is misrepresentation, unsolicited consumer agreements, consumer guarantees, warranties, refunds, repairs and receipts, and itemised bills, and then what to do if you get yourself into strife. Now, misrepresentation, you see this in the news, you hear this regularly in the news. This is misleading, deceptive conduct. It's basically not telling the truth, in relation to what you're doing in your business. So some examples are things like claiming an affiliation or a qualification when you don't actually hold one, which is an offence, which is punishable by significant financial penalties. Advertising, for example, beachfront lots, when in actual fact the beachfront lot isn't by the beach. It's not what you said it was. Guaranteed returns that don't eventuate. And this is one for small businesses to watch out for. We've seen a number of cases in relation to social media advertising techniques, so website optimization, I've talked to someone about before, different types of new and emerging marketing, and the promises that were made in some of these cases did not eventuate for the companies who have sold those things. So we deal with those complaints regularly at the moment. So businesses who were told that they will get a guaranteed return in relation to paying for a particular type of marketing, and indeed they didn't see that. Neither did the other 50 companies that had paid for that. Those sorts of companies who offer those things and don't deliver are up for, not only is their business model going to the toilet, but they are up for significant, we're talking multi-million-dollar type penalties for those types of offences if they're caught and prosecuted. And the other thing to be careful as a small business when you're buying things is to think about value for money, the value for money proposition, which is if someone's telling you that something is worth this amount, is it actually worth that amount to you? So, unsolicited consumer agreements. Now, these are where you as a business, or you as indeed as a consumer, where the offer is made via a telemarketing call or an uninvited, so a knock on the door, or stopping a consumer in a shopping centre from a stall, or there's a range of other mechanisms by which something would be constituting unsolicited consumer agreement. In those circumstances, there's a range of things that traders are required to do by law, and there's financial penalties for failing to do so. So they have to disclose certain information. They have to cease negotiations if the potential consumer ceases the negotiations. They have to provide copies of contracts if negotiations are entered into. There is cooling off periods that apply, and there's also termination rights that apply to the person who's consuming the product. So under the law, goods must be fit for purpose. They have to match the description that's provided in the advertising or the sample, and they have to be of acceptable quality. The services have to be provided with due care and skill. They have to be fit for the specified purpose, and they have to be provided within a reasonable time frame. The other part we want to talk about is consumer guarantee. There's no such thing as no refunds, so don't ever let anyone tell you that there's no such thing as no refunds. If there's a major failure, so in your case it was a major failure, the computer stopped working, didn't work anymore, so that's a major failure, then the customer legally can choose, if it's a minor failure, so say, I don't know, the screen, sometimes the S didn't work or something like that, then they get to choose whether it's repair, replace or refund. Does that make sense? So there's a separation between major and minor. Now if you can't agree on what major and minor are, that's when people come to us and say, what can I do in this circumstance? We'll help you work that out, help you negotiate. We'll negotiate on your behalf with the trader to try and get a settlement there. Now, the other thing is consequential loss can be claimed in relation to those sorts of failures. So say you had a complete failure of your air conditioning system, and as a result you couldn't operate your seminar that you were going to have on that day, and you lost $4,000. Then arguably you can make a claim for the consequential loss, not just the loss of the air conditioning, but the loss of the money that you had that you would have got if the air conditioning hadn't have broken down on that particular day. But a change of mind, so if you bought the desktop computer and the next day you saw a better one down the street, you say, I actually don't want that, I'm going to go and get the other one from over there. You can't do that. It's up to the trader in those circumstances, and many traders will say, yep, no worries, I'll give you your money back, that's fine. Or most people say, I'll give you a credit note. And you can come back and you can buy something else at a later date. So a consumer has rights under consumer guarantees regardless of any warranty. Yeah? So a warranty, a manufacturer's warranty, may give you additional things on top of what you already have entitlements to under the law. So it might be a bed, and the bed has to function as a bed, and if you pay $2,000 for a bed, you expect the bed to last for, you guys probably expect it to last for 5 years, I expect it to last for 10 years, the bed, yeah? But the manufacturer might say, we're going to give you a warranty on this bed for 15 years, because or a lifetime warranty. The manufacturers have to make sure that in Australia they've got available parts for you. So if you buy something, you have to expect to be able to replace parts in it, yeah? So there's a reasonable obligation on manufacturers to do that. Receipts, just wanted to touch on that. Over $75 have to provide a receipt. Under $75, the consumer can ask for a receipt, has to be provided within 7 days and provide the proof of transaction. A consumer is within their rights to ask a supplier for an itemised bill within 7 days that shows how the price was calculated, the number of labour hours and the hourly rate, the list of materials used and the amount charged for them. But some things that you can do for yourselves is download iShop WA, which is an app that we produce that helps you as a consumer when you go to David Jones and buy a pair of Adidas, as much as it does as a business when you're in trade or commerce, that you can give you some quick advice or quick information on what your responsibilities or rights are. If you see someone breaking the Australian consumer law, so they're misrepresenting, they're door knocking, they're doing them without providing what they need to, they're not providing refunds where they should, then those kinds of things can be reported to us as breaches, and depending on priorities and how big the issue is, then we will focus on an investigation and potentially a prosecution in those sorts of spaces. But generally we're talking magnitude, so we're talking a lot of, a group of people affected, losses of a significant amount, or blatant breaking of the law, yeah? So report to us, dispute resolution, disputes between businesses. Many of those can be go through an alternative dispute resolution with the Small Business Development Corporation, so you can review their website, see what they can deal with. And otherwise, dispute resolution is via the Magistrates Court, which is a lawyer-free, generally relatively cheap way of getting a magistrate to make a decision about who owes who what in relation to a dispute that you might have between yourself and another trader, for example.